Good afternoon. I'm not actually going to talk too much about Mummy Star today, but if it is something that you want to find out a little bit more about, then please pop down and see me at the stand if I haven't spoken to you already today, because it does feel like I've spoken to so many people. What I'm actually going to delve into is more around what it's like to go through a pregnancy after trauma, but normally when we talk about that, we talk about it in the context of a woman and potentially, having a fear of birth, having had a difficult first pregnancy. I'm going to go through it from the other side, from a male point of view. A lot of what I'll talk about is relevant even if there hasn't been a bereavement. It could just be in the context of if, as a partner, you've watched your loved one go through a traumatic birth, and a following birth could have, there could be some transference, I think, of feelings and fears. In my context, sadly, it is set, against a loss that that my family suffered. So just going back 6 years, myself and my wife Maya found out we were pregnant again with our second child. We already had a little girl who was 3 years old, and just wanted another baby to complete our family. She had gone through the first pregnancy, and after birth she'd breastfed our little girl until she was about 14 months. So these were all things that she was looking forward to doing again. And then sort of midway through the pregnancy, she starts to feel discomfort in her left breast, and just thought it was something innocuous, thought it might be a blocked milk duct or something, as her body was getting ready to feed again and the pregnancy was advancing. But at a routine scan it was checked, and it became very apparent that she actually had a very significant breast tumour. Now, you would think as a birth experience that this would immediately just wreck everything, but for us, far from it. We actually had just our care was second to none in this situation that we went through, from the care we were given, from the options that we were provided, from the small interventions that we had as a family, from whether it be us getting additional scans throughout the pregnancy, whether it was us being provided with donor milk so that the trauma of losing the opportunity to breastfeed a baby again wasn't lost completely, right through to the actual birth of Merlin himself. And he arrived nice and healthy. Maya was induced at 37 weeks for a clear clinical reason. It was to bridge the gap between chemotherapy that she was having. So as a family, we had a really, really good birth experience. Now, what sadly did follow was that Maya had a progression of her disease, a very aggressive one, and she actually passed away when he was 10 weeks old. Leaving sort of me as a dad on my own, looking after a baby, but also trying to explain to a 3.5-year-old what had suddenly gone on in the last 10 weeks, why our mum suddenly wasn't around. And it was primarily this experience that ultimately led to Mummy Star being founded, so that we could provide a continuity of some sort for mums who were diagnosed in this situation, or who were diagnosed immediately, sort of postnatally, up to the baby being 12 months, but also if the family were to experience the kind of loss that that I experienced within 12 months of that baby being born. Now, having been through that process at the time, me, as a dad, like I said, it was a really good care that we had. It was a really good pregnancy. It was we had full of positives. And I guess, like anything, in hindsight, you start to realise what you didn't necessarily experience during that pregnancy, what you weren't able to enjoy, what the cancer did remove, I guess, from our experience. But you kind of need to go through it again, to spot those things, and that effectively is kind of what happened to us, what happened to me, as time sort of went on, and then, thankfully looking forward to, a new pregnancy that I'll come on to. So me as a person, what had I gone through? I mean, to most of you, it's immediately obvious. I've gone through, the extreme trauma of losing my partner. It's associated around a pregnancy experience, so there's always that, sort of what we've missed out on, what we haven't, had that time as a couple to spend bonding with our baby. There was the fact that she wasn't able to spend much time with baby because she was going through the rigors of treatment, so she wasn't that well, so it was constantly me having to try and look after him, but look after her as well, and trying to prioritise one, incorrectly prioritising one over the other, but, instinct kicks in, and, and the memory is there of, like I've put that picture up there of me and Merlin. That's when he was about 6 weeks old. It's a photo I can't stand, because I look empty. I don't look like I have any love for that little boy at all. And it's it's true in hindsight. I didn't have any energy for him. I just wanted my wife to be, to be better. I wanted to make sure she was being tended to, that she had everything that she needed, that was going to, aid her recovery every time she had had her treatment. And it's kind of an empty picture, really, if you like. And I look back on that, and I look back on those early days of Merlin, and I think, God, I really didn't bond with my own son. That's quite a thing to come to terms with when you're. But then my head was so full of everything else to deal with at the time. It's not something that becomes apparent. I think I probably had a fear of illness. When I see my kids getting sick, I just go, God, what's going to happen now? What is it going to be something more serious? And there is that mix when I think of pregnancy. There's a mix now of that excitement and fear. I obviously sort of, I get to share that joy with so many women on a weekly basis, where they get in touch with us as a charity for support. But equally, we're excited for them to we're going to try and do something as much as we can to be able to offer them a normalized birth, in spite of the fact that this cancer has come along to in the midst of this joyous experience. And I think within all of that, I think, again, when you go through it again, you're looking at, there's negative experiences there, but you'd love to be able to replace them. It's talked about in maternity, for every woman who has a negative experience, you have the power and you have the ability to be able to provide her with a positive experience, to be able to, give her a better memory. And in the same for us, it was, there was elements of this, that were going to creep in. If I ever, and I didn't think it would happen after this had immediately happened for obvious reasons, but if there was ever an opportunity for me to become a dad again, what would that be like? What would it unearth? What dormant feelings or trauma was there going to be buried within, the sphere of pregnancy that were suddenly going to, come to the fore again? And this is mostly what I want to sort of talk about, really. I think dads, and I think men in general, we don't talk enough. We don't open up. We don't share our feelings. It's a well documented thing. We certainly don't talk about men in a sense of perinatal health often enough, about the possibilities of postnatal depression in men. But generally, as a role within pregnancy, both the pregnancy and immediately after, we don't check in. How many of us actually really do pay attention to dad and say, how are you doing? Or how have you found the birth? Is there anything that you want to talk about? We focus primarily on mum, and quite rightly so. And I'm not here to try and change that at all. What I would like to do is just draw an attention to the importance of checking in with dad, because there might be some unknowns that you guys will come across, and there are small things that can happen that that could aid his experience of my last pregnancy. So fast forward to July last year. I met my partner Nick the previous year, and we got pregnant really quickly. We'd wanted to, Nick hadn't had any children herself before. We desperately wanted to have a child together, and we, far quicker than we'd expected, we got pregnant again, and it was like fantastic. We're a blended family. There's obviously the two kids, from mine and Maya's marriage, who, they remember their mum really fondly, but they're obviously really attached to Nick as well. And so, we started off on our pregnancy journey really, really excited. We were going to, grow the family. And we went into our first midwifery appointment. And this is kind of where the disappointment starts. This is where the things creep in, and you think, really, could that not have been handled a little bit better? So we went into an appointment, and the midwife, as you would do on the first thing you say, ask the lady, is it your first pregnancy if you've not seen her before? And Nick, as she, so beautifully does, she phrases, we've got 2 children already, but this is my first. I love that. I love that, acceptance of the wider family that we have. But rather than inquire then and say, oh, right, so tell us a bit more about your family situation then, there was this blunt bafflement on the midwife's face. What, the children live with you? And I was a little bit, well, yeah, it's not an alien concept. Kids can live with their dad, and dads can bring up children really well, and, we shouldn't presume that because they're dads, they're unable. But there wasn't then a question, oh, right, can you tell me a bit more about your family situation? Can you tell us a bit more about the children? Anything. And I'm not necessarily advocating, a full-blown war and peace about tell us about the horrible bereavement that you suffered while we're having this lovely, what should be a happy midwifery appointment. But it's about setting context for that woman that you're about to look after and the family that you're about to look after. and what should really have left from that moment, as well as obviously the primary focus of it being about Nick and about her pregnancy and about any, I don't know, pre-existing issues there might have been, there surely should have been a note to say, Dad has lost his previous wife within the maternity setting, but there wasn't. So we go out of that appointment and, you know, we sort of go, yeah, it's a bit of a shame that, you know, that has to be spoken about the way it does, but, you know, hey-ho, we just, you know, you crack on and you think it'll get better again. So we carried on and we got to 20 weeks, and this is where the sort of the harping going back to what happened previously then starts to creep out. So we go into a 20-week scan. Nick is obviously really focused on meeting our baby for the first time. I'm excited to meet our baby for the first time. I'm also really keen on my last memory of a 20-week scan not being associated with a cancer diagnosis from a wife, which is what Merlin's scan is associated with. So we want to try and, you know, get a really good positive experience. Sadly, what happened was almost a repeat of the first. It was a sonographer came in and, you know, told us that we'd have a 25-minute appointment. We're thinking, great, that's loads of time, loads of attention, loads of detail about the baby and, you know, and about where things are and how baby's doing and, you know, growth and everything else. But sadly, the same thing happened again. It was like, oh, tell us about your family. I told her, it was like, oh, so you look after the children? Like, no, I don't look after them. I'm not the babysitter, I'm the dad. And my children live with me because I'm their parent. And again, it was this look of, right, okay. And, you know, that shouldn't be the case in this day and age. I think we're long past the, you know, an era where we didn't think that men, you know, can and do parent well. But it's quite shocking as the person on the other side of that conversation to think, do I look funny or something? Is there something odd that sort of says, you know, oh God, I wouldn't leave the kids with him? But it's that, and again, inquiry about, let's find out about the family context. Let's find out about what has happened. What, you know, what's led you guys to meet? You know, and it could be a whole number of things. And you could, within that conversation, like almost like a gentle inquiry, you could eke out a little bit more about that family structure, because we're not going to be the only blended family that comes across that a midwife meets. There's more and more families out there where it's, whether it's bereavement, whether it's a divorce setting, whether, you know, a whole number of them, and there'll be already children in that relationship, and there'll be potentially a new baby coming in. So I think it's just an awareness about, you know, the changes that we now see and, you know, differing family structures that we're going to see. What else was wrong with that isn't necessarily related to the, you know, sort of what's gone before, but it was like going into a scan that you think is going to have full of attention, and then we were like, all right, so we're done in 12 minutes, and they literally whizzed around the sonography screen as quick as a flash, going, this is the heart, these are the chambers, this is the kidney, this is the lung. You're like, which bit's which? Go back again. And we were just kind of kicked out of the room really, without sort of the attention that we'd hoped to, you know, our heads to have, and, you know, be able to. It was like I said, that chance to meet baby for the first time, you know, visually. But we was kind of like, before we even could get our heads around what we were looking at, it was gone and off the screen, and we were just given a load of pictures. We did raise it. You know, there was a complaint made about the handling of it. We did get a lovely second scan. We got loads of time, and we were really carefully shown about how healthy our baby was, and, you know, sort of where all the different parts of the body were and everything. And again, that to us gave us what we had hoped for as a couple. You know, irrespective of anything else that surrounds this, that gave us our chance to meet baby. Because when we came home from the first appointment, I think we both felt a bit robbed, like we'd been denied part of the pregnancy experience that everybody, you know, talks about and everybody looks forward to, and you hear friends, you know, say about, oh, the day they went for their 20-week scan. And, you know, we came home, and again, we were both upset for, you know, for the different reasons that I've outlined. And, you know, I was like, still sort of like a 20-week scan to me, it's just gone by in a blur. What did we actually do today? But thankfully, they did look after us. Again, I think outside of that, what becomes apparent to me as a dad then was, as the pregnancy advances, and, you know, any of you that have had, you know, babies, or any of you who have supported a partner with a pregnancy, you know, listening to the bump, feeling the first flutter, feeling the kick, you know, putting your head on bump, those things are really, really precious. And I can remember doing that with Martha when she was pregnant with her. And I paid so much attention to Nick. I just didn't even leave her alone. She was, you know, to the point that she was like, right, can you get off the bump now so that I could just go make a brew? But what became apparent in that process that I found really challenging was I couldn't remember any of that with Maya when she was pregnant with Merlin. I don't know whether we did do it. I don't know whether it's just trauma that has blocked it out from me completely because of what we went through. But doing those things, and there's a positive feeling of us being able to experience that as a couple, with Nick and I. It also brought contrasts out of what I'd lost, and it wasn't just about the physical loss of Maya not being around anymore. It was those experiences of being a parent and enjoying that pregnancy. Going through that process, talking to baby, hearing responses, feeling responses, getting woken up in the middle of the morning, not just because Nick was getting kicked in the pelvis, but because the baby kicked me in the back that hard. I was like, oh, I've just had a 6:30 wake up. This is kind of getting us ready for when he arrives. But I have to say, the follow-up care that did happen after that was, it was excellent. We got really good explanations. We got, that people sort of paid attention to us. When Nick did finally go into labour, she went in 2 weeks early. We ended up actually, a friend of ours was able to deliver Flynn. And then the most bizarre thing of all happened is that he actually arrived on Maya's birth, which to us as a family, that might kind of freak people out a little bit as a bit too much of a connection. But to us, to Nick and I and the family, it almost represented the, kind of a completion of a circle, if you like. Postnatally, again, sort of great follow-up. There was even acknowledgement from health visitors and some midwives that came out to see us that they knew all about the charity and they knew what had gone before, but there wasn't one question within all of that of, how are you? Are you doing okay? And it's quite shocking when somebody's aware of the context of what's gone before, to not necessarily follow that up with, so you've clearly lost your wife and you just had a baby. Are you okay as a dad? How are you dealing with this? And the truth behind that was, I wasn't actually dealing with it very well at all. I was struggling to come to terms with the fact that I'd actually would not have to bring this baby up on my own, and that I did actually have my partner next to me in the middle of the night when he wakes up for a feed, and coming to terms with the fact that I can now cradle Flynn as closely as I want and I have nothing but attention for him, but yet I now feel that I lost time with Merlin even more acutely than I ever have, because I can, there's almost this transference, if you like. I think, in summary, I think the message that I want to try and leave you with is, every family, like I've said, they are unique, they are special, you're going to see a different mix of families, different structures, different experiences. You could have a dad who comes to you with his new partner who was equally traumatised by a previous birth that he had with his first wife. He could have seen her rushed into theatre not knowing what on earth was going on. He could have a similar experience to me. He might not understand what's going on. It's about taking interest, I think, in the whole family picture. So it's primarily, you are there to, for mum's care, but check in with dad. If you see them, and I acknowledge completely, a lot of the time you're not going to see dad at your appointments because they can't, attend. I've got the luxury of being able to because I work from home. But if you do see dad, check in, ask the question, ask how he's doing, and not in in an officious kind of way, but just generally in terms of the family, sort of what they're doing, how are they involved, what are they doing with the other children, anything. Don't be afraid to explore and open up a conversation, even if there's been trauma, because the worst thing we can do is hide away from it and not talk about it and not acknowledge it. If we even if it is just giving a nod that that something's gone on, that can mean the world to somebody. That would have meant a hell of a lot to me if somebody just said quietly as I was going out, "I'm sorry for the loss you had. I hope you enjoy this pregnancy." Something, just a snippet, I think. Every visit, every appointment is a new memory. It was a new memory for Nick because she'd never had those memories before. They were new for me because they were new for us, but they were new for me as what had gone before and what I'd experienced with 2 previous pregnancies as well. But don't, and again, presumption, try and move away from these kind of societal presumptions we have, like I said, about the way I was greeted as a dad looking after, sort of my children as the primary carer. Because ultimately, we don't know what has gone before. And we just need to have a rounded awareness of it, so we're making sure that whole family gets all the care that we would hope and desire that we would if it was the other way around. So that's kind of a bit of a sort of a potted run through that. That is Flynn at the bottom. But that was about 4 weeks old, but he's now 4 months old. And he's slotted in really well with our family. The kids love him, and there's the bond between them all is absolutely fantastic, and it's beautiful to see. But yeah, it's just try and take account of the whole family, and just remember that partners, need checking in with as well as mum. So, thank you very much for listening.